Hi there. Welcome to another episode of 300 Hospice Seconds. I'm Bill Harder. This episode is all about metaphors for grieving. And you'll notice in the picture just up to the top left corner there's a picture of a coffee cup, maybe not unlike this one, and a picture of a bell. And we'll get to the bell in a minute. But first, the coffee cup. I think about sorrowing sometimes like a cup of coffee. Imagine that this hot cup of coffee is your life. And next to it is a box of sugar cubes. Each of those cubes represents a loss. Losses you haven't had yet, and losses that you might have. Life comes along, and without our permission, without our wanting it to happen, it picks up a cube and drops it in that cup. Sorrow sees that loss has been dropped into the cup of our life, and it comes along and it stirs it until the sugar is completely dissolved and bound with the water. And for all practical purposes, you can't take the sugar out again. It's permanently in the coffee. And it changes the nature of the coffee. Not better, not worse, just different. Top to bottom, left to right, forever. That's a little bit like what grief is. When a loss is in our lives, we can't go back and undo it. Something's been taken from us, and we can't get it back. And that loss and the subsequent grief and sorrowing change who we are. Something fundamental changes in us. If we are collaborative with our grief, if we're open and vulnerable to feeling what arises, if down the road as we work through this grief, we look to make meaning of it, then that change in us is transformative. Sometimes people say something like, you got to get over it. You need to move on. They just don't understand. There's no getting over it. There's only moving forward differently. Okay, and the second metaphor. If grief were a sound. If grief were a sound, then in the days, the weeks, the months following a loss, especially catastrophic losses, that sound is so loud. It's like that bell in the picture, clanging. And we wake up in the morning and that sound crashes in on us. And at unexpected moments of the day, it can be so deafening, so painful to hear, and we can't get away from it. It's a klaxon, and it bangs right beside our head. Over time, as we collaborate with our loss, with the grief that is generating so much emotional energy in us, over time that sound softens. As months go by, or maybe years or even decades, the sound becomes not unlike the buzz of fluorescent lights. You walk into an office room and you're busy chit-chatting and you don't notice that background sound. And yet if somebody stops and says, "Hey, can you hear the lights buzzing?" Suddenly you notice, "Oh yeah, I can." As time goes by, and again, as we really become partners with our sorrow, the sound can soften so that it's in the background. It doesn't ever go away. It's there when we need to access it, when we need to remember what our grief is about. That sound can come to the forefront, softly, gently for us. It doesn't, though, have to stay so loud forever. In both these metaphors, we're reminded that grief doesn't go away. It changes who we are, and it can move to the background where it's not so distracting for us as we mature in our transformation. Well, if you're grieving a loss today, you have my compassion for how loud the sound of that grief can be. Take heart, it won't be that loud forever. I'm Bill Harder. This is 300 Seconds for Hospice.